All right, let's pile it on. Let's get out of here. That's a lot of fish.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to a brand new, spankin' new episode of Mecha and Monster Mondays. It's been a while, hasn't it? So the last episode was more or less the ending of our first season, even though, to be honest, I wouldn't really call this a series that follows like a seasonal structure. And the reason that is because going forward from this point on, episodes will probably be coming out on a pretty sporadic basis. Sometimes you might get multiple episodes over the course of several weeks. Maybe there might be a long gap between episodes, mainly just because we want to make this kind of a loose, fun podcast for whenever the time permits it. But we are back with a new episode, and it brings a great joy to my heart to welcome a very special guest back onto the podcast.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Brainfolds.
Yeah! And since last time you've been on the podcast, you have been doing some fun kaiju-based stuff. Would you like to talk about any of that?
Yeah, I made a Godzilla Iceberg. It's about 1 hour and 3 minutes, and I'm super proud of how it turned out. Also really blown away how people have received it. And then I immediately made a video talking about how much I love Godzilla, and that one also did pretty well. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're on real good traction.
No, yeah, I'm just really happy how this stuff's starting to turn out.
Yeah, and that was probably one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on for our first episode back, but also to talk about probably the first instance on the show where we both watched the film for the first time right before recording this episode. So we're going into this like real fresh, real kind of blind, nothing, no real preconceived conceptions besides trailers, because today we are talking about Godzilla and Kong, the New Empire, or I guess Godzilla X Kong, depending on how you want to say it. I don't actually know what the X means.
It means they kiss.
Yes, which, well, for the first thing we should probably get underway is the fact that since this will come out fairly close to when the film actually comes out, a fair warning for everyone: this will have spoilers for the entire film, spoilers of many kinds, because we do want to at least talk about like some plot stuff in fairly descriptive detail. So if you want to find out more about the movie, or you just don't want to hear about it just yet, you can leave right now. You gone? You gone? You good? Alright, cool. Well, elephant in the room, Godzilla and Kong did not fuck.
Which was a big miss.
Yeah.
It would have been a 10 out of 10 for me
like,
if it did.
It's really disappointing because, they know that this is what fans want, right? At this point.
Twitter lied to me. It said there was like an hour's worth of that. But
yeah,
no,
just
none.
a hardcore, kaiju pounding sequence that, come to find, going into the film was just not there. Just completely excised from the film, and it's super just disappointing, and I don't know how I'm going to recover from this.
Just complete baiting on marketing's end. I don't know how I'm supposed to trust Legendary again.
Yeah, and frankly, I want to say specifically to the many Twitter users under the name of Big Kaiju Dick 65 who said that this would happen, and it did not happen. I hope you think about your life.
You lied, and I am stupid for trusting you.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined. But, with that being said, what about the actual film itself?
The actual film, I did not mind. I thought it was pretty fun.
I am, weirdly enough, actually just kind of the same feeling that I already expressed. I am a bit disappointed, but more for, different reasons than I would have necessarily anticipated, because I guess this is another case of actual baiting in this time around, because I was promised something that was more akin to a dialogue-free movie that barely has any exposition in it and is just continuous kaiju nonsense, when in reality there very much is exposition, and it is very, very long and very, very dry and very, very boring.
I would agree with that, actually. Because, there's not as much exposition as there was in, say, like Godzilla X Kong, or Godzilla vs. Kong.
Yeah.
Or, like, King of the Monsters. What's in here, it's very long, but, like, it's not as painfully detailed as, I'd say, the other ones were.
I guess that's fair. I think it is one of those cases where it's like with Godzilla vs. Kong, it was one of those things where it's like they do have to set up, like, a lot of stuff that is kind of, like, brand new to maybe, like, the normies.
Yeah, exactly. You don't read the comics, you don't know who Tiamat is.
Yeah, you just have to, like, you know, like, express, like, some stuff that is, like, obviously probably new information to some people, which, I mean, that being said, some of this stuff even I didn't know, so I'm not, like, completely, like, off the hook on that one. But, like, I guess also with, like, Godzilla vs. Kong, it's, like, it didn't seem as elaborate because, like, the general conceit of Godzilla vs. Kong is still pretty present, is, like, it is about an eventual confrontation between those two, and the plot around how it gets to there is sort of just superfluous, where, like, here I feel like the actual plot has a bit more bearing into, like, what's happening, and as a result, the actual, like, Godzilla and Kong aspect kind of feels like it's just a different story happening, like, removed from the film itself.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But with that being said, though, once, like, it actually does have its moments to, like, get to what we're really here for at the end of the day, the real je ne sais quoi of this series, which is just big meaty lads wailing on each other, scaly lads. And
for that, I think this movie completely delivered. Like, the amount of just elaborate choreographing is just insane. Like, I would argue it's, like, some of the best action the MonsterVerse seen.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's, like, once it actually does get to it, and especially, like, in that, like, back half, I'd say, is, like, when it starts to, like, really shine, and I'm able to, like, really, like, get into it and have fun, because there's just not only just, like, really elaborate action sequences, but also just, like, a lot of fun stuff that, like, results from it that's just made me laugh, like, numerous times. Like, well, for one, I think people know about, like, the mini Kong from the trailer, so, like, people kind of were already anticipating that, but the way it was utilized was a lot more fun than I was anticipating initially, because, like, my thought process was just like, oh, they're gonna have a cute little baby character and that's just gonna be it. But then the first scene was, well, how would you describe it?
So it turns out that little baby Kong is a little actual feral.
Yeah, and, just a fucking devilish monster.
Oh yeah, completely, like, gnaws on King Kong's hand.
Yeah.
And actually leads into him getting jumped by other big monkeys.
Yeah, like baby Kong was, like, just, like, a bait for, like, Godzilla to get fucking freaking jumped by, like, an entire gang of, like, other Kongs.
Exactly, and Kong, he does what you would do in the situation. You grab the smallest member of the group and use him as a weapon.
Yeah, just fucking wailing on them with this small child.
Like, fucking Kong loses his Godzilla axe and just uses baby Kong as a weapon, beating off the other Kongs with it.
Phrasing.
Oh.
I was gonna say, it's like, I mean, yeah, technically speaking, but, like,
oh yeah, but maybe don't phrase it like that.
Though not like that, but no, like, it is such a fun sequence though, because it's kind of like, it was one of those times where it's like, I'm not usually one to get, like, surprised with, like, stuff in, like, newer movies, but, like, that was a really funny surprise to just have that whole sequence of events happen the way it did.
I could not contain myself. It was just...
No, I was trying to be polite and not laugh at the image of a small child being beaten up by King Kong, but I was also like, nah, this is really funny, though.
That's right.
But, that's just, like, kind of a microcosm, though, of, like, the movie as a whole, where it's, like, just very much like even more than, like, something like Godzilla vs. Kong, where it was very much just, like, silly, just goofy nonsense, but this one is very much, especially no thoughts, head empty type film.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And, like, that's, and I think for me, like, when it really, like, leans into it, that's where it's at its best, but, like, when it actually tries to have a plot, it's just kind of like, well, check my watch. Okay, we're back at the cool monkey and big lizard. Cool. Awesome. 10 out of 10.
And, like, for those of you who are, like, a bit disappointed in, like, the last film being, like, mostly Kong and, like, a couple, like, segments featuring Godzilla, like it's like way more Kong than Godzilla. Like Godzilla, he still goes out, and when he is on screen, it's like a lot more action-packed use of his character.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, it's like primarily Kong. I'd say it's like 85 Kong, and the rest of it's just Godzilla.
Yeah, like it is. Kong is the protagonist of this story.
Yeah, Kong's the main character of the story.
Which, like, for me, that's also another kind of disappointing element, because I was one of those people that when I watched, like, Godzilla vs. Kong, was like, man, there is kind of a bit unbalanced ratio of screen time here, but, like, this one is, like, especially egregious, and it kind of sucks, because, like, I'm gonna be real. Kong's fun, Big Monkey's great, but, like, also you can't really beat Godzilla,
Exactly, like especially since, like, Godzilla's, like, the headlining name, it's Godzilla versus Kong, Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah, it's like, the fact that he's the first name to show up is, like, a sign of, like, probably the appeal is a bit stronger with him, but, like, I don't know, maybe the thought process was this was an American movie, and King Kong is an American kaiju. He's an American hero.
Alright, he eats hot dogs, he wears sunglasses, he has AR-15 at home.
Despite the fact that he is also a creature that was, like, born on, like, a fucking, I don't know, like, island that I can assume is, like, supposed to be, like, off, like, the coast of Africa or something like that, which, again, the original has its, like, interesting subtext, but, like, this film doesn't really get into that because, it's like, we're in Hollow Earth, a totally real place. Which, every time Hollow Earth was mentioned, it was another one of those, like, I've tried my best not to laugh. Because it's just so silly. It's just so silly.
I will admit, the Hollow Earth is very silly concept, but I will say, it's a very pretty execution. Like, seeing it mountains on the sky, did not expect to see that. Glad I did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, once it, like, actually gets to play around with it, it's pretty fun. But also, that does bring me to, like, some aspects of the story that I think I guess we probably should get into, despite, like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
But, the elements that interested me were, so, like, the big kind of conflict of the story is, like, Godzilla is protecting Earth, and King Kong is staying on Hollow Earth to protect it, basically. But the deaf girl from the first Godzilla and Kong film, what was her name?
Her name was Gia.
Gia, yeah. She's kind of, like, being drawn to going to Hollow Earth, I think is what it was, for mysterious visions and whatnot. And so group of characters from the previous film take her to Hollow Earth essentially to, like, find out, like, what the deal is, because, like, this girl already was fairly mysterious because, like, hey, you can communicate with, like, a big 70,000 ton ape monster. There's probably something a bit special about you, so we should maybe trust you on this one. And as a result, we find out that she is actually from a tribe called, was it the Iwi?
Yeah, it was the Iwi.
The Iwi, which I don't remember enough about, like, King Kong lore to know if it's, like, a thing that was supposed to be, like, part of King Kong, or if it's supposed to be more with Mothra, because also Mothra is in the movie, so, there's that.
Yeah, and, like, the Iwi, they showed up in Kong Skull Island. They were, like, that little tribe. They were like, oh, Kong's the fucking best. He keeps those skull things, like, outside of my house, dude.
Yeah, and it's, like, maybe it's because I haven't really seen Skull Island in, like, a fair bit, but I did kind of forget about that, like, aspect of the story, which, like, thinking back on is kind of odd, because it's, like, basically this entire indigenous tribe just, like, is part of Hollow Earth, I guess?
Yeah, it seemed like they just originated from Hollow Earth, and what we saw in, like, Skull Island was just, like, a small remnant that followed whatever Kongs ended up on the island. Yeah,
which, like, I'm, like, I guess, like, I'm struggling with, like, the implications of that, because it's like, how the fuck does, like, a group of humans live on the horrific monster-infected, like, infested areas that is Hollow Earth? But then again, like, Skull Island was basically just a miniature Hollow Earth on the surface.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And it's kind of just, like, one of those things where it's, like, again, thinking way too much into a movie that features a fucking, big lizard and giant monkey fighting. But, like, it's still one of those things where it's, like, weird. But I think even what's more just sort of like odd to me is like the way that the tribe is treated with in relation to Gia, where it's like they're kind of just there, you know? Like there's a lot of time taken into like, oh, but like Gia is like literally the last of an entire culture that has gone extinct, except oh no, they're actually still there. They're still like existing. And you know, there's a whole group. There's not really a lot of development. There's more just like, child, you will wake Mothra, and she's like, all right, chill. And then that's it. There's not really much else.
It's like, oh yeah, she's all that's left of her culture. Nah, there's like a dozen more underneath the earth. Did you know that?
Yeah, and it's just like, and that's cool and all, and I feel like there could be more interesting stuff done if it wasn't for the fact that like, I don't like. I'm curious as to like what the implication is here, where it's like they more or less all speak in like sign language, kind of, or like a variant of sign language. If it's like, are they like all deaf, or do they just decide to like communicate in that way?
Now that's like never really explained in any of the films, because I know like in Skull Island they don't really like communicates, like like the pilots from Skull Island.
Yeah.
Like he more or less like picked up that, you know, he can just kind of like get the general vibe of like what they're trying to like, I guess, get across.
Yeah, like what they're communicating with each other on like a general like body language style kind of like communication.
Yeah, and like in this film, it's like the podcast guy was like, oh no, they're telepathic. Did you know that?
Which like.
Which I don't know if that was like a throwaway bit or an actual piece of lore.
Like because it's coming from that character, I assume it's like a joke, but also at the same time he actually is right about like a fair amount of shit. So I'm like, are you is this a bit? Is this real? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like again, they don't really delve that much into the tribe, which like, if I'm being honest, like none of these kaiju films that do that trope of like the indigenous tribe that houses like big kaiju monster, it's never really like expanded upon that much. But I think it's just the fact that they have like the girl who is like, you know, oh, I'm being reintroduced into my culture that I used to be part of, and then they just kind of like, yeah, that's it. That's all we're gonna talk about.
Yep, that's it.
That's it. Because like the bit at the end that was just like kind of frustrating to me is like, you know, she has the emotional scene with the fucking Rebecca Hall's character. I don't even remember her name, but like the scientist lady,
right,
where it's like a very emotional, like, you know, adopted daughter and mother thing, and it's like, oh, but you said I would stay with you. But then just like, I'm just like, but like, you are also just going to like forever like limit her ability to like know what her culture is like outside of just like, hey, we got Mothra back home. And it's like, that's cool, but I'm assuming there's more to it than that, right?
Yeah, I was kind of off-put by that little, like, ending decision Gia made, because, like, I really feel like that was what we was aiming for.
Yeah, like, you would... That's what I was thinking, right? Like, it's gonna do something where it's, like, a good middle ground where she still is, like, with her, you know, like, adopted mother, but, like, still be able to be part of, like, the culture in some way, but not... Which, I mean, realistically, like, yeah, it's kind of hard to, like, have joint custody between mom on the surface of Earth and fucking, like, tribe in Hollow Earth, but, like...
It turns out all she needed was a day away camp.
Yeah, and then she's like, alright, that's all I need to know about my culture, I'm going back home.
I'm ready to go back to school. By the way, she goes to school, it turns out.
Yeah, and also, like, it's kind of obvious that, like, I don't know if it's because of, like, the weird, like, prophetic Paul Atreides style visions that she has, or if it's that she just kind of hates school, but, like, there's very much, like, an implication of, like, she does not really fit into her school somehow, which I'm, like, you know, my mind goes into, like, oh, like, someone from another culture trying to adopt, like, a completely different culture and, like, what that would do, but, like, I don't know, maybe the film was just, like, she's just having the visions.
Oh, yeah, she's having just a case of prophetic dreams.
Yeah, you know, like all teenagers have. It happens to everyone, right?
Of course, I've seen The Orb.
Yeah, we've all seen... Dude, we've all seen The Orb.
Exactly.
You're not special.
Oh, okay, well, I thought that me seeing The Orb hatch was the thing.
Everyone saw The Orb hatch, dude.
Shit.
It's just a thing you do.
Damn.
But, yeah, so, like, that's kind of the general plot of the movie is just like, oh, well, like, I guess the other general plot of the movie is that Kong finds out that there is apparently Ape Hitler living, like, down below the deepest depths of Hollow Earth, because, like, literally, it's explained in, like, hieroglyphic, like, monologue before they even show it to us, so it's, like, the funniest, like, introduction to this possible, where it's, like, Rebecca Hall is, like, oh, the tribe's hieroglyphics are showing, like, the story of Hollow Earth, and it's, like, literally shit that just hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. And, like, to describe these hieroglyphics, they're, like, massive, just panel carvings of, like, events that happen. And I guess by looking at them, you can kind of put together what happened yourself.
Yeah.
But the way, like, the scientists, I guess, deciphered them was, like, I don't know if she read the pictures, because I didn't see any, like, basic hieroglyphics to base on.
Yeah, like, it was fairly, like, complicated, like, visuals to an extent where it's, like, there could be some ambiguity as to, like, what it's saying, but, like, the thing is, there's, you know, it's, like, slightly ambiguous, and there's no, like, obvious text that they show us that, like, indicates what it's, like, supposed to say, so, like, there's honestly a possibility she was just riffing.
Exactly, like, she constructs a story, like, out of thin air.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, the Ape King scar, and it's like, how can you tell? It doesn't show a fucking scar on it.
I don't see anywhere on this single panel picture that says scar.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's just so funny because it's like, it comes across as like a prophecy thing that was, like, set up earlier in the film, but then it just sort of dumps it on us in, like, the middle of the story.
Basically, yeah. And it's like, you know, if she's just giving them names, you know, like Scar King or Shimu, like, then go off. Just say you're making up the name.
And also, like, it would have, yeah, yeah, like, it's like fucking the specific names of shit where it's like, but where do you see that though?
It's like, where on this hieroglyphic carving does it say Scar King, and where does it say Shimu? Like, if you're just giving them names, that's cool. But don't pretend you read that.
But, like, the thing is, I feel like it would have been more effective if, like, the scene was edited in a way where it's, like, the reveal is happening as she's, like, showing the hieroglyphs, but now she just says the full thing, and then Kong is like, damn, what am I doing up in this, like, volcanic acid place? Why are all these other Kongs, like, being used as, like, slave labor? Why is there a big lanky red Kong at the top of it? And then it's just like, yeah, I know who that is already, guys. It's not that big of a reveal.
I mean, yeah, he's got the glowy eyes. I mean,
yeah,
who else is it gonna be?
Yeah, which I will say this, like, there's like a duality at play for me when with this film where it's like I'm kind of sad that they haven't used, like, some of the older, like, Godzilla properties of, like, kaiju stuff, that because there's, like, an entire rogues gallery of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I remember early theories when the film was, like, in production, that whole beach scene in Brazil.
Yeah.
Like, people kept describing that the actors were directed to, like, look up at something. That something was, like, coming from the ocean, and a lot of people thought, oh, it's gonna be Destroya, or oh, it's gonna be like one of the other, like, flying kaiju, like Gaiden or something
like one kaiju that has, like, wings. That's probably not Ghidorah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, maybe, like, you know, like Gigan, or maybe even what was it? Megalon? What was, like, Megaguirus?
It was
like another bug kaiju. But
yeah, one that has
something that could fly.
Yeah, but what Godzilla fans forgot to take into consideration is that kaijus are just really big, and that's why people look up.
That is true.
But so there is that element where I'm kind of sad that there were no, like, previous, like, you know, like, new iterations of, like, older, like, kaiju stuff. But at the same time, I do appreciate that they did make new stuff for this rather than just, like, rehash old things, because it could have been really easy to just plop random kaiju into that film.
Like, look, 50 Anguirus running off across the sea. Look, it's Titanosaurus in the ocean doing shit. I don't know.
Yeah, and, like, not to say that like the designs for the monsters in this film are like the most original thing ever, but like they're pretty fun. I think they're pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. They're pretty good. Pretty top notch.
Like Shimu is sort of just ice dragon, but like I actually really like the Scar King because it's like really like a more thinner kind of like agile Kong that has like the fucking like bone whip. That's really neat.
That was just really sick.
Yeah.
And of course, we get to see the MVP Doug make his definitive return.
Doug has returned, everyone, and there was much rejoicing.
Me when Doug showed up.
Me when Doug. And it's just like the clip of fucking Leo DiCaprio like pointing at the TV screen.
Is that there you go? Yeah.
But no, I was gonna say that was a really fun cameo. But speaking of cameos, even though it's more so like a supporting role in this, Mothra is also in the movie too, which I did not know about.
Now there was like an interesting bit with Mothra. So originally, in like an earlier cut of the film, it was actually a more reptilian-looking monster, not Mothra, that had these like giant angelic wings. It was basically Mothra in everything but the name would look. But like test audiences did not like this fucking phony, so then Legendary decided to just cough up the royalty fee and decide to give Mothra back.
I was promised Mothra the giant moth, but all I got was cheapskate.
I get this gross lizard with bug wings. I will not accept this fucking phony.
Yeah, you are fake among your people. Bring us the real thing. But Mothra does play a fairly significant role in. Well, actually, fairly significant is kind of a bit of an overstatement. I'd say it's like Mothra essentially is summoned to basically be like, "Hey Godzilla, my boyfriend, please follow Kong into Hollow Earth to fight big.
Let him ride on your back for like 2 minutes, please.
Let Kong ride you." and Godzilla's like, "Wait, what?"
He starts to blush a little bit. Like, what?
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't mind. Mothra is actually a Fujishoshi.
Oh shit.
But not like. That's kind of all that Mothra really does in the film, which was also like another sort of disappointing thing for me because it's like
true. She just kind of like barters a temporary peace between Godzilla and Kong, really.
Yeah, which like conceptually that's just like really funny to me because like again it's like you have the one female kaiju to be like to the two guy kaijus be like, "Hey, stop fucking fighting and just team up already," and then go from there.
It's like, okay, mom.
But like, nah, it's like, I don't know. It was nice to see her in the movie, but like, let Mothra fight.
Like honestly, yeah.
Let her fight some bitches. That'd be fun.
And I will say, I was disappointed in one scene where they like discovered like the Mothra ruins when they're like starting to like fuck about in the jungle.
Yeah.
And I saw like the little firefly. I thought, oh my god, did they bring back like the mini Mothra from the Mothra trilogy? No, it's just a normal bug.
Nah. Yeah. Like.
It's like, what a missed opportunity.
Like, it was maybe foreshadowing for, like, another film in the future, but, like, also, I kind of don't expect them to make a standalone Mothra film.
And, like, I get that, but it would have been, like, a nice little micro reference.
Yeah. It was neat for what it was. It gave me, like, a dopamine hit for, like, half a second before I realized they aren't not going to do anything with that.
That's true.
But, yeah, no, like, I don't know. I'm not even really that big a fan of like the redesigned look of Mothra in this because like I remember in fucking King of the Monsters the way that they did the design for Mothra and I liked how that looked, but this time around it's kind of just like I don't know, it looks a bit like just it looks more like a fly than it does like a moth to me.
I get you. It's like she's definitely made a lot more like gangly than like her previous designs, and
yeah,
I do think they'd like reuse some aspects or maybe even like the same model from King of the Monsters, but because how the way that film was like lit and rendered, they couldn't make it like a perfect look of how she actually was meant to be. So finally seeing her in like proper lighting sort of like I guess highlighted a lot more like
that's I was gonna say that's a very fair point because I do kind of forget like just the very massive difference of lighting between like these two films because like here's the thing, I'm not even like the biggest fan of this movie, but I at least can give it credit to the fact that there's clarity in the action sequences.
Honestly.
Because, like, King of the Monsters is, like, for one, probably, like, one of the most disappointing movies for me. Like, not the worst, like, one of the worst movies, but, like, just overall disappointing. Because, sure, you get the scale of the monsters, but it's shot and edited in a way where, like, I cannot tell what the fuck is happening.
That's true. And I will be a King of Monsters, like, big fan, but I will admit, there were times where I'm like, could you fucking get a flashlight on them?
Yeah, no, like literally, could you have a shot just slightly stationary for 1 second and also has no fog?
It's like, man, I bet this would be cool.
Yeah, man, it would be so cool if I could see it. But, no, like, that's the thing is, like, so, like, the way that, like, the kaiju fights in these movies are handled, they're kind of, like, they can feel a little bit floaty, but they're a bit fun sometimes. But I will give it the credit that I can very clearly understand, like, what's happening in the scene.
Exactly. Like, each of the films in the MonsterVerse have definitely taken a lot more liberties with the fighting, because, like, in the first 2014 film, it's all very slow, methodical. You see, like, the kaijus are putting a lot of effort in their movements.
Yeah.
Even in, like, some regard to, like, Kong.
Yeah.
You can say there's a fair bit of that. But as soon as we get into, like, Godzilla vs. Kong and you know, this film, that's more or less kind of thrown out the door.
Yeah, because, like, which is fair, because, like, what the type of action they're going for isn't necessarily one where it's, like, you're, like, experiencing it from, like, a on-the-ground level, like, point of view. It's more so just, like, you want to see the scale of the destruction itself rather than just be, like, you know, the scope of it.
Exactly, and I guess if you're, like, sacrificing realism for spectacle, you really gotta, like, put it all out on spectacle, and I feel like these two recent films have definitely delivered in that regard, at least in that trade.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, when it like, really leans into it, rather than, like, you know, kind of going for something a bit more, like, you know, like, when it's trying to do, like, the on-the-ground level stuff, it's a little bit sort of, like, flat, but, like, when it just goes for, like, you know, fucking Kong suplexing Godzilla, then it's like, that's what I want.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, the best reference point I can say is, like, it is a very, like, faithful kind of, like, recreation of, like, Destroy All Monsters Melee, where
I would say this is, like, a perfect, like, modern interpretation of, like, Showa era films.
Yeah, and, like, I think for me, like, it's best when it's, like, they're fighting, like, in, like, the big cities and whatever, because, like, while you don't have, like, an amazing amount of sense of scope, like, when they're, you know, it's, like, very wide shots, you still get the sense of scope just from, like, the buildings of, like, oh, they are really fucking big. But, like, a lot of the Hollow Earth stuff is, like, it's fun, but it's also, like, it just kind of looks like two monkeys fighting.
And that is true, because, like, once you, like, have, like, Kong fighting off those, like, Kongs that kind of jumped him,
yeah,
it really did feel like just some monkeys fighting. Like,
yeah. The Brazil part made me laugh because it just made me think of, like, the please come to Brazil meme. But it was...
No, come to Brazil. No, Godzilla, see, he showed up. I mean, don't look at, you know, what he left behind, but Brazil, lovely place.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, someone in Brazil accidentally summoned Godzilla and Kong by accident. And, I mean, you know, it's like... I think that's when the film really shines, is, like, that, like, the city fights, because it's, like... You know, that's the classic kaiju, like, setup, is like, oh, you're in the middle of a big, crowded city, and there's a bunch of just shit to, like, knock over and crumble into. That's where it's, like, it's bread and butter is at, and not so much just, like, hey, look at all these rocks.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know, at least some of the setting is kind of a bit stylized and fun, because I like the fact that the fucking, like... The Kong gulag is basically, like, right underneath, like, a bunch of, like, volcanic waste. And it's like, you know, it has like various obvious, like, man, this place sucks energy.
Yeah, but looking back, I question, what's the point of the Kong gulag? What's the end goal here?
Like, what? Yeah, like, what are they doing?
They're moving rocks, and, like, to what end?
Yeah, like, there wasn't really, like, a plan really for, like, them until, like, you know, Kong showed up, and then they were like, hey, wait a minute, there's a surface world. Oh shit, boss, you get a load of this.
Also, I think I love the contrast between all the other Kongs and our Kong.
Yeah.
Because he's so, like, incredibly jacked compared
Yeah.
to any of them.
He's jacked, and he has, like, a handsome beard face. Meanwhile, all of them look like decrepit, like, Gollum mongrels.
Exactly, and that's just fucking, that's hilarious.
Yeah, no, like, they did, like, the fucking, like, Chad versus Neanderthal meme.
Honestly.
And it's just really funny. Also, speaking of that reminded me of another thing, since we were talking about the little baby Godzilla. A parallel that played in my mind when that happened was Kong has the really big axe and, you know, like the big gruff face and, like, kind of just this sort of, like, tired dad vibe, and has a little child that he kind of hates at first but then grows to love. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is just God of War.
Exactly. You turn to me and you just dead ass say God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, I had like an internal pog moment, and then told you that, and then
the second you said that, I could not unsee it.
Nah, it's just so funny to me because it's like,
yeah, because he's got the beard, he's got the axe, he's got the little ginger boy.
Yeah, the little ginger child, and there's even like the whole like fighting off an ice monster thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is so God of War. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts signing boy.
Yeah, he look, real talk, he might as well have been saying it with like the way that he like looks at him every time he's like, I'm disappointed in you.
And I will say, a big thing that I personally loved in this film was Kong's whole story, just like going to the Scar King Gulag camp, whatever.
Yeah.
I did like how there wasn't someone fucking explain to me every 2 minutes what he's trying to, you know, get across.
Yeah, like it just kind of shows it for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. Like when he like tells Mini Kong to to show him where like these other Kongs came from, he like picks up a knife and kind of gestures it at him.
Yeah.
And like, you know, little Kong points in that direction. And they go. It's like, yeah, I can pick up what they're throwing down.
Yeah.
Like, this is great. I don't need everyone explaining to me what's happening. I can put together the story.
Yeah, and it's like that's where like the film is also at its strongest. It's not just with like the big crazy fights, but it also just like visual storytelling between characters rather than like. Here's the thing. You could probably cut like half hour out of the human plot of this film.
Honestly.
Easy, and you'd have like a really tight 80-minute like fun blockbuster movie. But because, you know, we have to make films that are like near 2 hours, we were like, nah, out of obligation, we have to make this thing even longer than it needs to be.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like I would just love a film where it's like the human plot actually does feel like secondary to like what's happening with like the kaiju shit, because like, you know, you can say that all you want with this movie, but at the end of the day, like, the humans explaining stuff is still the thing that's like propelling the plot forward for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Whereas, like, you know, you could have easily just cut most of that out and it would have been like Kong on like a fucking odyssey to find like an like evil ape king and then find Godzilla to like team up against him.
Exactly, and I love like the vocab work that went into all the Kongs, because
yeah,
especially Scar King had like the most personality out of a lot of them, I'd say.
Yeah, and there's actually quite a bit of personality. I love some of the stuff with Kong and like the opening of the film where he's just like just kind of, again, tired dad energy, where he does like the kind of like the like scrunched face when he gives fucking part of his food to Doug. he just exudes a dad energy, and I'd like to reiterate, I do not mean that in a sexual way. I do not mean that in the way.
Mean, like, literal dad. Like,
he is not a daddy. He is just a father. Okay.
He is a father. Exactly.
Don't take that.
Don't misinterpret.
But you probably will anyways.
So go off, I guess.
Put in the comments below whether you think Kong is a daddy or not.
Now, something I would definitely like to talk about is Godzilla's new design.
Yes. There is a bit of an overhaul in some semblances.
Now, ever since I saw that first trailer, I immediately thought Godzilla's got some DLC skin going on there. There's no fucking way he played the whole game without looking into the microtransaction store.
Yeah, or alternatively, like the alternate skin in Smash Brothers.
He's like, no, guys, this is like, you just gotta grind for it. No, I swear to God.
And boy, did he ever fucking grind for it.
Because, like, he goes all the way to, like, well, first off, he, like, absorbs all this, like, nuclear radiation, and then he goes to the Antarctic, I think.
Yeah, it was the Antarctic.
And then he fights Tiamat, which is a kaiju that's been in the MonsterVerse for a bit, mainly showing up in, like, comics.
Mm.
Like, I think more recently he showed up in Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, where he fights Godzilla and the Kraken, I believe.
Just the Kraken.
Which, I'm gonna be honest, like, you said a default Kraken after Godzilla. What the fuck did you think was gonna happen?
Yeah, no, it's like, like, Kraken is cool and all, but, like, it is kind of a bit, weak sauce when you compare it to, like, hey, literal radioactive lizard destroyer of worlds.
And Tiamat's, like, been pretty much described as, like, one of the biggest kaiju in the MonsterVerse, and I know I've been, like, watching Goji Center, basically explaining how, 1v1, he could fucking wreck you and most other kaiju.
Yeah.
And, of course, in this film, he's, like, killed in, like, 2 seconds.
No, like, literally has about, like, 2 minutes of screen time, and most of that is just getting it fucking ass whooped.
Which, I mean, cool to finally see it on screen, but ouch for the fucking artist who made him.
Yeah, just be like, oh man, my creation is being interpreted in a major motion picture. That's so awesome. Oh.
Wow. Those are his bits. Cool.
Yeah, his bits are literally all over the fucking place now. But so that was something I was curious about, because I think of myself as a sort of Godzilla aficionado, but like I haven't even delved in that deep into like the comics or like any stuff outside of like films. So like I was like, who the fuck is this? Why are they pretending like I know who this is?
No, it's for all those hyper MonsterVerse fans. Oh yes, I see you. I see you watch Goji Center. You didn't read the comics, did you?
For the true believers.
Oh yeah, true believers. You know Tiamat, of course you do. And Behemoth and Doug.
Yeah, and Doug. Listen, everyone knows who Doug is.
All right, at this point, who doesn't know who Doug is?
Yeah, Doug is a cultural icon.
If you don't know who Doug is, what are you even doing here?
Yeah, you've been living under a rock.
And so Godzilla like kills Tiamat just to get to like his own little pocket of, I guess, solar radiation.
Yeah.
And this just prompts Godzilla to evolve into new hot pink cherry flavor Godzilla.
Yeah, which I enjoy. That's a nice look.
It is a good look. Like when I saw it, like I guess like just the concept art alone, I thought, what have they done to my Godzilla? Why is he Hollywood skinny?
What have they done to my boy?
But like it's one of those looks like in motion. It actually looks kind of fire, so like I'm not even complaining about it. I think it's a nice look.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like sometimes like still kind of like production artwork can sort of like not be fully representative of like what it'll look like in its full motion and so on and so forth. But it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's more so just an excuse to like, show like, oh, but Godzilla's even more powerful than ever this time. And
he's fucking ultra cool now.
Which, it's kind of funny because they take like a lot of time out of the film to sort of like say that like Godzilla is going to get like extra powerful, but like at the end of the day I'm like, I don't really remember like what difference it made in the long run.
Yeah, because like even like the backstory explaining that Godzilla was like almost killed by the Kongs.
Yeah.
Like it did show that he was able to stop them. Like arguably he was able to stop them in like his much weaker form, like from 2014.
Yeah.
And since then he got like super yoked.
Yeah.
And so I feel like baseline Godzilla, from King of the Monsters all the way to Godzilla vs. Kong, still is a fucking powerhouse.
Yeah, just like insanely OP when like compared to like basically all the other kaiju. Like again, the fucking kaiju that he beats to get like super powered, he just nukes immediately.
Like he didn't even need that extra nuclear energy. I think he could have done it raw.
Nah, he's just greedy as fuck. He just wants all of it for himself.
I just love it when I glow. What do you want me to say?
I just love glowing. That's my Godzilla voice.
And like the people who say, I hate Pink Godzilla, why is he that? Well, I mean, there's Godzilla 2000.
Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
I was gonna say, yeah, and also like You want to know what it actually made me think of kind of partially? I think it was Space Godzilla, the one with the fucking giant crystals on its back, because, like, the look of it makes it kind of look more crystal-like.
It does, yeah. And honestly, it's like a nice change from your standard Godzilla, who's, like, usually, like, monochrome as fuck.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good.
Yeah. Also, speaking of crystals, holy shit, is there ever a lot of crystals in this movie?
So many geodes, so many, like, chakra-inducing crystals.
So many, it's like there's ice... And then there's, like, an entire fucking pyramid made out of, like, some whatever material that is, like, super sparkly.
And they can, like, do magnets and stuff.
Fucking magnets.
Yeah,
how do they work? I was gonna say, there's, like, a lot of, like, stuff that I'm kind of glad the film barely explains, because if they tried to, it would be the most boring shit ever to try to, like, get into.
I feel like it'd be the equivalent of having to listen to a book report on how magnets work.
Yeah, which is like, we are not here to learn how magnets work. We are here to see big lizard monkey fight. Again, at the end of the day, that is why we are here in the cinema, as Nicole Kidman once said.
That's right.
Cinema brings us together to watch big monkey and lizard fight. But, no, there's a lot of crystals in this movie, and it was kind of just something I noticed as, like, a visual motif of, like, even the native tribes are like, yeah, these crystals be yoked as fuck.
We even got spear crystals. How do we make them? Don't ask.
Yeah, it's, like, it's not important to the plot. Anyways, speaking of plot, it is kind of funny that, like, so, like, the stuff with the going to Hollow Earth, it's, like, barely kind of a plot, and, like, the plot only happens in, like, the last 30 minutes when they find the hieroglyphs.
Exactly.
Where it's like, oh shit, there's actually a story now? Okay, cool.
Like, at the very most, they, like, prelude to, there's an SOS in the Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
And immediately I thought, oh, is it, like, Shimu? Is it the new monster who's calling for help?
Yeah, like who could this be? And then, you know, it takes, like, an hour for them to get to the fucking tribe, and then it's like, oh, that's why.
Sick.
Cool. And I think thinking about that made me realize, like, what my ideal version of a movie like this would have probably been, which is, like, the first half either just doesn't really deal with the tribe stuff, or just gets that, like, out of the way, like, immediately. Like, they go to Hollow Earth and it's like, oh shit, we found the tribe. And then they do the stuff with evil red Hitler King Kong, and then, you know, the second half is then Kong is like, fuck, I gotta link up with Godzilla, and I gotta, like, team up with him somehow, so you get more time to actually, like, have Godzilla in the movie.
Which I will say, that was by far one of the funniest parts of the film. King Kong trying to recruit Godzilla.
It's so funny because literally, like, he shows up, they do the death stare, and then Godzilla is, like, just sprinting towards him, and then King Kong just, like, mid-scene is like, wait, oh fuck, wait, no, stop.
I didn't think this through.
Yeah, literally does, like, the hands up and then just gets, like, rammed into a pyramid.
And, like, so, like, it's like Luke said earlier when we got out of the film. So Kong beats the shit out of Godzilla just a little bit.
Yeah.
And starts to, like, drag him to, like, the Hollow Earth portal.
Yeah.
Which, just the visual alone, is just, like...
It's so funny. It's like a bratty child that's, like, being, like, dragged to the doctor's office.
Exactly, and, you know, Mothra comes in and says, hey, fucking stop that.
Yeah, no, like, it's so funny to me because it gives me, like, the vibe of, like, someone's girlfriend showing up and being like, hey, can you please just do this for me? And then Godzilla's like, alright, yeah, sure, whatever. And then, you know... But then, and then immediately after it, it's like they do the whole thing where it makes it kind of seem like they're sort of, like, buddies. But yeah. It's just so, like, sudden that it kind of makes it a bit funny to me, where it's like they literally just started working together and now they're like a bit more pally with each other.
They're like a perfect team out of nowhere.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I feel like if we had more time for that, I feel like it would have made it a bit more, like, fun to be like, yeah, like, it's, you can see the transition between hating each other into, like, we'll work together. But, like, I don't know. I guess they just really wanted to spend all that time just fucking doing whatever was happening in the first hour of this movie.
We wanted more Kong lore.
We wanted more Kong just fucking chilling. He was just chilling. He was just vibing throughout most of this movie, if I'm being honest.
He was just on a fun little road trip with a rabid child.
Yeah, it's like I have adopted this feral beast into my livelihood. I will now journey into the depths of hell to defeat a big, horrific, lanky monster.
I prefer your term, Monkey Hitler.
Monkey hit. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like basically like it's just kind of obvious that like it is just like this is like a basically a king among like the other Kongs, but it's also like there is not much established besides he is evil and he is obviously abusing most of the Kongs, and it's like, okay, but like what are you actually doing though? And so like my thought process is just like he's just bad, he's just Monkey Hitler, and that's it.
Exactly. There's not much more to say about that.
Yeah, there's literally nothing else that you need established, and thinking about it, it is like, yeah, you probably didn't need to establish anything else than that.
And I will say, like, Scar King definitely shares a lot of, I guess, human-esque values, because he uses Shimu, this massive, just, like, ice kaiju, who apparently, like, caused the Ice Age.
Yeah.
To basically
I forgot about that.
fucking kill whoever he wants.
Yeah.
And, you know, it does feel like Shimu is definitely not a big fan of fucking up the natural order.
Yeah. Like it's obvious because, like, the evil monkey guy is like holding this like
a magic crystal.
A magic crystal that's like obviously kind of like sort of a directional device almost for Shimu to like attack ostensibly. And like the minute that like he loses it, like Shimu's like, wait, I can think for myself. Actually, fuck you.
It immediately kills Scar King.
Yeah, so like it is kind of interesting in that sense, because in that case, like, Shima's not really evil. It's just more so like a sort of a product of the devices of which they are bound to, which is like some crystal. Again, like, some shit does not have any explanation, but is probably better for it.
I would agree with that.
And, you know, I will say it's like a lot of some things that I do a lot in my previous episodes is like try to get down to like the thematic elements at play here, but I'm also like, I don't really know if this is saying much of anything at all about, like, you know, environmentalism or the military.
I'm sure it's got something to do with, like, finding one's origin, or something about, like, messing with the natural balance, like a lot of the films have been able to talk about. Yeah,
like, the best I can think of is, like, finding your own, like, place in the world because of, like, you know, Kong is now the leader of basically the entirety of the Kongs within, like, the Hollow Earth, and, like, you know, the Gia is like, oh, I found, like, the culture that I come from, but, like, that's about it, really.
Yeah, it's pretty basic in terms of themes, but, yeah, you know, it does the job. I was
gonna say, it's like, it is very much a no thoughts, head empty sort of experience, where it is more so just the immediate moment to moment, like, bullshit that happens, rather than, like, anything, like, sort of outside the theater, which even like Godzilla vs. Kong was sort of that thing, but, like, I guess it sort of depends on, like, which one you feel has the more entertaining set pieces, which, for me, I like, Godzilla vs. Kong didn't have a whole lot of set pieces, but, like, the ones that were there, I think, were, like, really satisfying, because I still think about, like, the warship scene and the stuff at the city at night. Whereas, like, this stuff is, like, they're really entertaining and they're really fun, but they do get a bit dry after a while.
Oh, man, yeah.
But, that being said, though, you know, you still get fucking the first 5 minutes, Kong, like, rips a fucking wolf monster in half and lets the blood rain all over his body, which is sick as fuck.
And, like, when that happened, I thought, why is it all green? And then I started thinking about it, like,
yeah,
it'd probably be a little too much if Kong was drenched in, like, actual, like, red blood.
Yeah.
Like, little kids watching this, so...
Yeah.
I can agree with the green blood.
It's like I don't remember who said about it. I think it was like the Samurai Jack principle, where it's like you can kill anything as long as it is either a robot or has, like, green blood instead of red blood.
Yeah.
But, like, nah, it's it is kind of funny because, like, I remember that Adam Wingard was, like, primarily a horror director before doing these films, and it kind of shows through, like, some of the just unnecessarily gruesome moments that you find in this film where it's just, like, just gore. Like, a lot of gore that you wouldn't usually see in, like, a PG-13 film. I think the only other comparison I could think of is, like, some of the Lord of the Rings films or something like that.
I think that's a good comparison.
Because it's just like, which is also funny because I was also directed by someone who did primarily horror before. Oh. So, who knows? Maybe horror directors are like, what if I made a very accessible PG-13 film where people just get chopped up, like, horribly?
That seems to be the vibe.
It do be the vibe, and you know what? I'm all for it. I support it, and I think we should keep doing it.
Hell yeah.
Fuck the children. we do what we want. But no, I think overall I'm glad that I watched it. I think I'm still slightly disappointed by aspects of it, but I'll still probably like watch some of the fight scenes on YouTube like at some point in the future.
Oh yeah, like especially after, you know, coming out like pretty close after Godzilla -1.
Yeah, like that's the thing is like when you have that, it's kind of not a very fair comparison. It'd be like comparing like fucking The Godfather to like the Japanese Spider-Man or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like they're two completely different things, but at the same time it is kind of undeniable like one is of a better quality than the other.
Yeah, exactly. And like I even like put out in the other like Why I Love Godzilla video I made that like you can still have a Godzilla film that is deep and has a lot more substantial things to say, but you can also have a Godzilla film that is just dumb fun.
Yeah.
I grew up with the dumb fun and grew to appreciate the more complex thoughts that goes into some of the more, I guess, intellectual Godzilla films.
Yeah, the more sort of like...
the more thoughtful ones, I'd say.
Like, thoughtful, maybe like politically oriented as well. And the thing that I'm just wondering now is, who will be the person that can do both?
Exactly, because like I'm not even saying that neither could be done in the same thing. In fact, I'm actually hoping that one of these MonsterVerse films will be able to do that.
Yeah, and it's like, part of me feels like maybe someone will be able to find like the right mixture where it's like just the right amount of both. But at the same time, part of me feels like the MonsterVerse will probably just go into even sillier territory, which is actually, you know what, I'm fine with that. I kind of want, if it's gonna be doing silly dumb bullshit, I just want it to go as hard as it is willing to go. Like my ideal is like, imagine like a MonsterVerse film, but it was like by like George Miller or something like that. That would be great. But like, you know, nah, they decided to give it to Adam Wingard, who is like, hey, I did the Death Note remake.
Do you like that?
You like that?
No, I made Godzilla X Kong. You like that? Oh, you like that a lot.
You,
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like, I don't really like Adam Wingard as a filmmaker, and I think Godzilla vs. Kong is probably my favorite film he's done, but that is still not saying much.
I can also agree with that.
But, you know, we'll see. Hopefully, I'm just hoping they give more people, like, the keys to do it, because I think that's kind of, like, what this needs, is just, like, a bit of experimentation with, like, a bunch of people who are willing to put their own touches on it.
Exactly. It's kind of like what happened in the Millennium Era. You have all these, like, super action-oriented Godzilla films that, you know, for the most part, had some aspects of deeper storytelling, but it was more spectacle.
Yeah,
but then you get like Godzilla, you know, Giant Monsters All Attack, which had the spectacle, but also more of a political stance on like national history regression.
Yeah, like there was like very much capital T themes in that movie, and were very deliberate while also like, you know, giving you the big monster spectacle and crazy bullshit. Whereas like, you know, then you have like what I think is probably more what the MonsterVerse is trying to emulate, which is like Final Wars, which is like, this is just nonsense and lovely nonsense.
And if it goes that direction, I think it'll be fine. I think it's gonna be like really fun to see.
Yeah.
But like, I do hope that we're gonna see at least one GMK feeling type film,
Yeah.
essentially. Like, not, like, immediately the next one, maybe even the one after that.
Yeah.
But, like, hopefully one of these, like, strikes a chord a little deeper than fun action.
Yeah, and, like, considering where Godzilla is, like, right now, where it's, like, bigger than ever, it's, like, hopefully that is actually, like, a viable, like, path to tell the story, because I feel like, you know, I'm also a massive fan of Godzilla, and, like, there are a lot of fans of Godzilla, but, like, there's also some that are just kind of, like, Godzilla is just a fun, like, kaiju monster film, and, like, are kind of, they're all sort of just the same, but I feel like it is a really good tool of storytelling to be able to use something that has been utilized so many times in so many ways to be like, what is a new avenue for this? And maybe, who knows, again, because of, you know, how popular it is now. I mean, you know, Godzilla is an Oscar winner now.
Exactly.
An official Oscar winner. Godzilla, not the people who did the visual effects, just Godzilla.
Just Godzilla himself. He went on stage. He tried to talk about his friend Anguirus, and they got played off the stage.
Yeah, and then he torched the entire crowd. No, I mean, like, that's the thing. Right now is a very exciting time because the possibilities could be endless. I just hope they take advantage of those possibilities.
Exactly.
But I think, is there anything else that you would want to talk about with the film specifically?
Yeah. I feel like the only thing I would want to talk about is just the music.
Because yeah.
One of my favorite parts about the MonsterVerse, at least like leading up to like King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, like I've always liked the scores of like the first 2014 film. I thought that was a really nice take on the Godzilla theme, or at least like a new sort of retool of introducing the big man and a lot of the more climactic moments.
Yeah.
Like I still kind of hum that first 2014 film here and there.
Yeah. I was gonna say it has really good atmosphere to it as well.
And then, you know, King of the Monsters, they get Bear McCreary, the goddamn God of War man, to make the soundtrack, which I cannot stop listening to. He's on my Spotify Wrapped. That's how much I love it.
It's fucking great, and also they got fucking Serge Tankian of System of a Down to do a cover of Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult for the end credits, which is arguably the hardest fucking end credits song you could have for a Godzilla film.
Honestly. And, you know, those first two films were very orchestral and definitely fit the tone of Godzilla, especially, you know, leading up to that. But then we get, like, Godzilla vs. Kong, which used more of a, I don't want to say exactly 80s synthwaves, but it was pretty much 80s synthwaves.
Yeah.
Music. And while it wasn't bad, I don't think, like, it struck that much of a chord with me.
Yeah.
Because I never really felt a lot of the big hits.
Yeah, and, like, that specific stylization feels a bit kind of clunky when you're putting it with, like, the Godzilla and Kong films, because, like, 80s style stuff kind of makes sense for me when it's, like, something that's, like, really, like, explicitly sci-fi stuff. Like, this has sci-fi elements, but it's just more so, like, window dressing to, like, explain why things are the way they are in this universe. But also, like, Godzilla and Kong aren't really, like, very 80s, like, things I attribute with, like, that specific style of music anyways, because it's, like, you know, when I think of Godzilla, I think of, like, the big, you know, like, da 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 thing, which doesn't really translate that great into, like, maybe, like, a synth version of it, and it just feels kind of like, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of Adam Wingard's scores for films are just, like, 80s synthwave stuff, so I think that might be just a directional choice.
I think that's true. And for this film, we still get a lot of synthwaves, but I really feel like they missed a big opportunity when they start talking about Mothra.
Yeah.
You hear the first few keys of, like, that Mothra theme, you know, like,
Yeah.
da, da, da.
Yeah.
And my favorite part was, well, from the Godzilla films, like from King of Monsters, was Mothra's theme.
Yeah.
Because it was so faithfully adapted from the films. But, like, in this one, we only get, like, a few chords, and then, oh, soundtrack as usual. Cool. Yeah.
I also think it is kind of funny because, like, the musical motif I think of attributed with Mothra is not even so much just the orchestral score, but, like, the stuff from, like, the original films with the
like the two fairies.
Yeah, the two fairies who sing, you know, the Mothra kind of chant. But, you know, you have an indigenous tribe that doesn't speak, so you can't really do that.
And I am a little upset they didn't, like, even reference the fairies, because, like, in King of the Monsters, we got, like, a slight reference from, like, these two scientists in Monarch who just so happened to be twins.
Yeah, like, it was kind of some reference to that.
If anything, it was actually kind of kind of like in your face about it because we see like a family photo full of twins.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, so they definitely know who Mothra is.
Yeah.
But like in this film, no, the twins ain't here. That's just a funny coincidence.
Yeah, no, and it just kind of feels lame because it's like, it's not like I needed it to happen, but it's like, if this wanted to have more of a sonic identity in terms of the way the music gets used, it probably could have taken advantage of that, but again, they decided to make the indigenous tribe, again, for some reason, just completely mute.
Exactly, like, it's just some sort of, like, acknowledgement of that at least would have been nice, but
yeah,
whatever.
like, because at this point, it makes me think they're not gonna even, like, do anything with that.
Yeah, no, Mothra's just back now, and that's where she is.
Yeah, no, Mothra has the obligatory, hey, stop fighting, anyways, out. That's it. But, yeah, and, like, yeah, it is kind of disappointing, like, how, like, lackluster the music is, because, like, even for how much I don't like King of the Monsters, it has a great score.
Oh, yeah, and that's really is what I look for, and not just Godzilla films, but, like, any film, really. Like, it needs to not only, like, look pretty, but it needs to have, like, a really neuron-activating score for me. Like, if I'm humming your theme, even when I'm not watching the movie, even months after I saw the movie, then you did a great thing. Yeah. But what we have here is, I mean, kind of generic, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, and, like, I think it's also and I think another thing is also sound design in this sort of case, because I think, like, with like a kaiju film, you want to feel like the size of it and just like how loud the, like, you know, the roaring is, and like in this one it's like part of me is kind of glad they took it down a notch, because like there is a point when it's just literally like a bunch of monkeys yelling at each other, and it is like, okay, this would be grating if it was any louder, but like I don't know if it was the theater sound like system or if it was just the way the audio is mixed, but like every time Godzilla does his like iconic roar, it's just sort of like feels really lackluster and doesn't have any impact to it.
It felt a lot quieter, if I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, and like again, maybe that's just the theater.
That might have just been the theater.
But also, like, I don't know, there was stuff that felt sort of loud when I was watching the movie, but like, who knows? But like, again, trying to compare this to like -1, it's like that has like an incredible soundscape and also like a score that is like just beautiful, like just genuinely beautiful.
For -1, I could eat the sheet music. That's how good it is.
Thank you for that fucking child of, was it Roald Dahl who said that one thing where it's like this child liked my art so much that he ate it. But no, like, yeah, the soundscape in this one is like just generic. Like I describe it as Transformers sound design. I don't know like what the proper like term would be, but it's like the like that sort of sound.
I would agree with that, and even like to add on to that, I would go back to like 2014 and King of the Monsters, because I feel like those had like some really good like kaiju sound effects, because the Mutos, I don't know what it is about those little clicks they made or like all those little sound effects, but those are really cool, and it felt very atmospheric. Even like Godzilla's own little rumblies, that was really fun. Yeah. And in King of the Monsters, we got more of that with like Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra. I felt had like a much better sound design than what we would get in this film.
Yeah, and even in like Godzilla versus Kong, like I really love the choice in like the big city fight scene that have no music for most of it. Yeah. Because then it actually allows you to sort of pay attention to the sound, whereas like this one is just kind of like audio soup for most of it.
Basically, yeah.
But yeah. Anywho, I think that probably wraps up my thoughts on the film overall, which means we kind of get into, you know, the segment everyone's actually here for, which is Rate the Kaiju, which here it's kind of hard because there's just so many of them, so I'm going to narrow it down to, like, I don't know, like, 4. Well, actually, yeah, I'm going to narrow it down to 4 because if I included Doug, it wouldn't be fair because he'd best everyone.
That's right. He'd get a 10. He'd get a 20 out of 10 immediately, so that's not fair.
So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to exclude Mini Kong because who cares?
Yeah, he's just small Kong. There's not a lot else to say.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about King Kong himself, Godzilla, the Scar evil monkey Hitler guy, and Shimu. So I'll start off with Kong, who is just basically like what he was in the Godzilla vs. Kong film, which I like that design. I like that he was just really buff. He's got dad face again.
He's just insanely jacked.
Yeah, just insanely jacked. I'd give him like a solid 7 out of 10.
I agree with that. You know, even with the glove, I feel like the glove adds a point. So I
forgot about the glove.
Kong with the glove, 8 out of 10. But you know, your base Kong, I give it 7. It's not bad.
Yeah, I would say the same. Yeah, for Godzilla, I'd say that's like kind of a similar like rating of 7 out of 10 because I like the redesign elements, but it's also like not that different. And I think part of me kind of does actually prefer the blue look for some reason, just because it is like my mental like kind of association with Godzilla is like blue and like that sort of color. But like I do like this design, so I'd say 7 out of 10.
I think it's a good rating because while it is like a pretty solid choice, like go ahead and redesign your Godzilla just to not confuse it with like Toho's like newly established version.
Yeah.
I think this is like a great attempt. I thought the choice to break up the color palette was really cool design, even though he did come off as like a little too spiky. Like
yeah, he's very spiky.
It feels like something I would definitely like make. Like I would call it Ultimate Godzilla. He's got like the thagomizers on the end of the tail.
Yeah,
he's got like spikes on his arms. He's got
God
so many spikes.
Yeah,
and while I do appreciate the design, I will say that nothing really beats that 2019 design.
Yeah,
which like just took the plates from the original Goji, puts on this really already solid design, and for early King of Monsters to Godzilla vs. Kong Godzilla, I give that one a solid 9. But this one, I'd probably give a 7 just because I appreciate the look. I just don't agree with a lot of the design choices, especially making him super thin.
Yeah.
But like it still looks cool in motion.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's cool in motion. That's kind of where it works best. All right, then we go to Evil Scar Hitler Kong, which I like his design. I think it's cool, and I like kind of how agile it is. I will say it's not like the most interesting like redesign, except for kind of that like sort of like sash that he's wearing that also works as like a whip. I think the whip kind of like gives some extra points for me because I'd probably give it like a 6 out of 10, but I really do like the whip, so I think I'll give it like a 7.
Me, I would honestly just like give, even with whip, Scar King, I'd probably just give him like a 6 because fair. Like to be fair, like if I'm gonna be completely honest, this is just kind of evil Kong. Yeah. And while I do like how he's very expressive in the film, like he's very much like a what would you say, a vaudeville type villain, twist the mustache. Yeah, like very twist the mustache, like grin fucking look. He's like kicking other monkeys into lava, that kind of deal. Yeah, just a smarmy like little asshole. But I feel like if they made him like a different kind of ape, like I remember seeing on Instagram even, someone like redesigned Scar King as being this, I want to say baboon looking chimp, or maybe like orangutan, or like or is he orangutan? Or like even like more of like an orangutan type character. Like like I mean like fat face orangutan. You know what I mean? Like just real like gloopy face. Like you can say this one's orangutan-esque, but that's not the kind I'm thinking of. Yeah, like, if we lean more into that, you know, then like, that would have been really sick. My ideal version of it would be like, I think it's a gibbon is what they're called, but the ones that I guess it's maybe like howler monkeys, but the ones that like look like frogs. Oh, those ones with the big inflatable necks? Yeah, the big inflatable necks, because I think they're funny, and also because I feel like you could do something where it makes it look menacing somehow. And like you could have like Screech attack or something. Yeah. Like, that could be something. Like if they did like a lot more crazier designs with Scar King, like to make him feel a little less like just your standard Kong but skinny and ginger. Yeah. Then that would have been a lot higher on my list, probably even higher than Kong himself. Yeah. But like as is, like he's not super impressive in terms of like kaiju design, so I just give him a 6. Yeah, that's fair. I was gonna say, it's like, is the implication of this movie that saying the ginger is evil? That's right. But then again, there is a small Kong, so you know. But then that brings us to Shimu, who I probably give like a low 6 if I'm being honest, because I like aspects of the design, but it is also just
ice dragon, basically.
I get that, and I do like follow the artist who made him. I'm blanking on his name right now.
Mm.
And I know like the design was based off like not Suchomimus, but it was like some like terrestrial crocodilian type creature from the, I want to say, early Mesozoic.
Yeah.
And I do like the attempt to trying to make that but big and crystals on back.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I'm not a big fan of is that head.
Yeah.
Like looking at the like him looking at me from the front.
Yeah.
I'm not vibing with it. Like,
No.
that is just a dead design. Him looking at the side. Okay, that's a little better.
It's like looking at a Phineas and Ferb character like from the face like towards the camera.
Exactly. Like if they like rework the head to make it look a little more crocodilian, or like give him like some sort of, I guess, more definitive like head shaped silhouettes. Like if you have like I'll even go as far as say give him like a unicorn horn or something.
Yeah, something to make it a bit more distinctive.
Yeah, something Barragon-esque or something.
Yeah, because they can't use Barragons.
Yeah, exactly. But it's close to Barragon.
one day we'll have you in the modern age Barragon, my sweet.
You will have the Book of Barragon. We will all watch it.
You will have your moment in the sun. But all right, with that being said, then that concludes our episode on Godzilla and Kong: The New Empire. Marco, thank you again so much for joining me for this episode.
Not a problem. Had so much fun not only watching the movie with you, but also just like being here, shooting the shit about it.
Yeah, and would you like to plug anything that you have again for the end of the episode?
Yes. Check out my YouTube channel, Brainfolds. I upload a Godzilla Iceberg that you might like, and a Why I Love Godzilla video, which you also might like.
And if you like Godzilla, I'm pretty certain you'll like this, because I also like Godzilla, and I liked it, and I'm totally not biased whatsoever.
Me plugging that into this into that. Why would I do that?
What? No.
Huh?
No, it's just a coincidence.
It's a happy coincidence.
Yeah, who cares? Anywho, thank you again for joining me for this episode, and thank you, the viewer or listener, depending on how you're experiencing this podcast, for joining me for the return of Mecha and Monster Mondays. Hopefully it can stay a regular thing, but, the episodes will come when they come, so fucking be patient, little bitch.
Yeah.
And that's how I end my episode. Anyways, thank you so much for listening, and hope you have another great Mecha and Monster Monday. Peace.
It's a kid. There's some kid in the cockpit of the Gundam, sir.